Now, the one thing that I think is common between all those three kinds of ways of getting to be an animal rights advocate, Da Vincian, Damascus, Mudler, is we all believe that animals have rights. That's what the kind of bottom line proposition that we're willing to affirm. The question is, do they? Now, one thing we know about this question, it's a very important question, and we're not going to find an answer to it in the media or in opinion polls or in unexamined traditions. For example, if you go to opinion polls, perhaps you say, take an opinion poll, how many people think that animals have rights? In the United States, it's something like 8%. Well, if you thought that that answers the question, you say, well, most people don't think animals have rights, therefore they don't have rights. Opinion polls would settle the issue. But opinion polls don't settle the issue. I mean, 92% of the people can be mistaken. I mean, usually there was a time when everybody thought the world was flat, and everybody was mistaken. So opinion polls in the media or unexamined tradition are not going to do it. The only way we're going to find a satisfactory answer to the question, do animals have rights, is by accepting the invitation of philosophy, by thinking independently. And what is the invitation of philosophy? Philosophy's invitation is to think for ourselves. It's the greatest, no other discipline gives us this gift. It says, think for yourself. I mean, don't start with the assumption that there are experts. Think for yourself. Of all places where this is a profound truth, justly honored, the city of Athens, the birthplace of philosophy. And we're to think for ourselves, we're to muddle along using logic and being factually informed, not being ignorant of how animals are being treated, and also not just being subject to strong emotional pulls. We're to free ourselves from prejudice if we're to make any advance on the question, do animals have rights? And really the purpose of my remarks today, the reason I'm here and along with my wife Nancy, the purpose of my remarks is to extend this invitation to everybody. Let's all think for ourselves, being factually informed, using logic, and freeing ourselves from prejudice as we try to answer the question, do animals have rights? The role of rights, how do rights function in our moral thinking, in our moral life? Well, think about it. Rights protect our most important goods, our life, our body, our liberty. That's their function. Their role is to protect our most important goods, our life, our body, and our liberty. Rights limit freedom. They're like invisible no trespassing signs. Your rights limit my freedom. There are certain things I'm not free to do, else I violate your rights. If I'm not at liberty for no reason whatsoever except for my pleasure to injure your body, your right to bodily integrity protects you in that respect, and society recognizes that. And my rights limit your rights. Your rights limit your freedom as well. So this essential function of rights is limitation on another's freedom, a limitation on another's freedom. Rights take priority. Rights take precedence over other important moral considerations. They're what we call the trump suit, if I can use the expression, in the game of morality. I know some of you might not be familiar with a game with a trump suit, but I'll give you an example of what I mean. In the game of bridge, for example, a certain suit will be determined to be the trump suit. And let's suppose in this particular hand we're playing the diamonds or the trump suit. And so the first player plays the queen of spades, next the king of spades, third the ace of spades. I'm the last player. I don't have any spades, but I do have the two of diamonds. In a game like bridge, that two of diamonds, when diamonds are trump, is more powerful than the queen of spades, more powerful than the king of spades, more powerful than the ace of spades. The two of diamonds wins that trick. It's because it's the most powerful trump. Now, when you apply that kind of thinking to how rights take priority, the priority of rights, you think of something like social custom. You know, things have been done this way for a long time, and they stabilize society. Personal benefit. This is going to advance my job, advance my career. I'm going to make more money if I do this. Or the public good. We'll do research that promotes the public good. The public good is a very important good. But if none of these things are acceptable morally, if they are done at the expense of violating the rights of the individual. I'll give you an example of how this works then, of what I mean by this. Let's take a public good. Let's take research, biomedical research, in the name of promoting human health. Well, here's what happened in the United States for several decades. Over 400 African-American sharecroppers had syphilis. And the doctors knew this. And the doctors were paid by the federal government, by the United States government. But what the doctors wanted to know was, what happens when someone has syphilis and you don't treat the disease? What complications arise? How long does it take them to die, and how do they die? These are important questions. We should find the answers to these questions. And so that's what they did for decades. They did this in the name of the public good. But anyone who believes in the rights of the individual, human rights in this case, believes that the rights of those individual sharecroppers trumped. That is, they overwhelmed, they overrode, they were more powerful moral considerations than advancing the public good. Rights are equal. So remember, we have a role. Rights protect our most important goods. They limit freedom. They take precedence. They're equal. My rights are no greater than yours, and your rights are no greater than mine. So that's a kind of taxonomy of what we mean when we're talking about rights. We all think we have such rights. That's what democratic representative government is based on, the notion of the rights of the individual, the rights that function in the way that I've characterized. But what about other animals? Well, here we have two important questions asked. Factual questions, what is the case? And foundational questions, who has rights and why? Main factual questions are, any animals like us physically? Are any animals like us mentally? Or are we somehow unique in our physiology and in our mentation? Well, physically, it's quite clear that other animals have sense organs, other animals have central nervous system, other animals have a brain. I mean, what could be more obvious than that they resemble us physiologically? Mammals and birds, for example. Pretty clearly, I think that's true. And some people argue fish. But we can kind of put that on the table for now and come back to it in discussion. What about mentally? Well, there are some people who think that other animals, whether it's a non-human primate or a cow or a fox, whatever the animal, there are some people who maintain that there's nothing going on in the mind of an animal. It's empty. There's nothing. There are no sensations, there are no desires, there are no emotions, no beliefs, nothing. And if those of you who know something of the history of philosophy know that this is the view that René Descartes advanced. He argued that animals are natural machines, like wind-up toys. You know, you wind a toy up and the toy runs around. You don't say, oh, look at that little dog trying to run under the couch. The thing's not trying to do anything. It's just a wind-up toy. Well, Descartes thought animals were sophisticated wind-up toys. And one reason he gave for that was that other animals lack an immortal soul. And because they lack an immortal soul, they don't have a mind. They have no mental life. Now that's a pretty irrational view, it seems to me.